Hello, hello. How are you guys today? It's funny, I saw a meme just today, just kind of scrolling through Facebook, and they had a picture of, it was like a pie chart, and it was time spent on crafts. So it was like finishing, waiting for it to dry, you know, on this pie chart, and there's this big section of the pie chart, like 75% of it was dedicated to finding the tool you just put down. So I don't know if that rings true for you, but it does to me. I'm constantly just like, I take my scissors everywhere and then I set them down, never put them back. So anyways, let's get started. If you're able to join and craft along, let me know. Say hi in the comments. If you're catching this on the replay, let me know. I don't know if you guys saw the post, but Facebook is no longer storing all the videos from the beginning of time. I kind of wondered when that would happen. Like, that would have to be, they'd have to just keep adding server space to host like everyone's live videos forever. Anyways, the post came out last month that said videos will now be deleted after 30 days. So I've always stored my videos on YouTube as well, just because I think that some people don't want to be on Facebook when they're watching the video. I know it's very distracting for me to be on Facebook when I'm trying to, you know, do something creative. With all of the notifications and things that pop up, it can get distracting. So YouTube is a little easier to just kind of hone in on that. So I was kind of safe there, but I know a lot of makers out there were really panicking about the idea of all their videos being gone. So I'm kind of glad I did that in the beginning. Otherwise, I'd be spending months trying to figure out what I'm doing. But anyways, onward. So Daisies. Another thing real quick too is this wood is the same wood I get from Home Depot every 3 months. But for some reason, it feels a little thicker. It seems to be like 0.05 thicker than what I normally get. So, and that just is wood is just wood. It sometimes will be thicker, sometimes will be thinner. So what I ended up having to do, you can kind of see it here. I painted the whole thing, and paint does give wood thickness. So if you're unable to get it into your slot, just sand here. And then you can also sand the back. I did do a little sanding on the back. And it is a little bit of a firm fit. I do have to, you know, use a little bit of pressure. And it shouldn't have to use it so much that you break it. But if yours doesn't go in quite right, just give it a little sanding and you'll be good to go. Okay, so let's put this off to the side and get started. All of the pieces come in, it's shrink wrapped into these blocks. So I'm really liking this method. I think it's going to be the way we move forward. They'll all just come in a square like this. It makes it very protective while it's shipping. And also helps me make sure that all of the pieces go in every kit. Prior to this, they kind of all came stacked on the main piece, right? And I had to count each one to make sure, and it was kind of it was a big deal. I didn't want to miss anything, so this is really helpful. So if there's a piece not there, I know that I need to go find it on the laser. So with this, we do add tabs that hold some of the pieces in. This one has already been knocked out. So when you go and start to craft, you can kind of see in the back, there's a little spot, one spot on every piece that is not cut all the way through, okay? And more than likely, you can just wiggle it in and out, give it a gentle wiggle, and it will pop itself out. It's just a very small little piece of wood that needs to be broken. If you're having a really hard time getting it out, you can turn it over And especially with these flowers, we don't want to ruin the petals. You can turn it over and use a X-Acto knife or a box cutter and kind of even just score that piece a little more. So once you get your pieces out, you can toss it. And we've got one big piece on this one. It's got one little spot up at the top there. So you got your main piece. And then all of the centers on this one, just a little wiggle. So what I mean by using a box cutter, let's see if I have my, or an X-Acto knife. See if I have one available. So I like having these on hand, not only for this, but other things as well. It's part of my stash. Put it on another wood piece. Use the back of it in case your knife goes through and you don't want to score your piece, or a cutting board or something too. You don't want to just put it right here on your table in case your knife does go through. You don't want to poke through that. But I can see right here that there is a spot that is not cut, and that's my tab that holds this piece into the shipping block. And I just push my edge of my knife right on that and push down just a little bit, and then it will easily come out. So you're just looking for that tab. If you're having problems, just press and you should be able to pop those out. Okay, and that can get tossed. So easy as that. All right, so let's get started. I guess I should have started. Did I start my timer? I did not. I'm using, like I said, white for my daisies. I'm going to use this color Yellowstone for my center. I've got some antique wax because, well, I like to use it for shading and distressing. But I also wanted to show you guys this. I've never used this before in my distressing of pieces, but I've seen some other makers use it. They are distress inks, and they're typically used in scrapbooking or card making. There's different colors. I think that's the last one yet. And I've had it for a while, and I've been cleaning my craft room, and I'm like, let's pull these out. So I'm going to show you how you can use these if you're interested in these little distress pads. They're pretty cool. I'm going to use this little makeup blending tool for it, but you can also use like a Q-tip or something, but we'll get to that. So I've got that out because I want to show you that. All right, let's get some tape and we will get started here. The other thing that I used in this one is a Sharpie. I created these really fun squiggle outline lines on my petals with a Sharpie. And I love how it turned out. It kind of just gave the daisies just a little extra. Okay. Make sure everything's turned over. We're good there. Got all those. I'm not going to tape down my daisies because I feel like I can hold those. But let me show you those lines. So I used a Sharpie to create these fun outlines on those. Because they were so white, I wanted something to define those, and I just love how they turned out. So I used a fine tip Sharpie. Now, if you're going to use something, do not use a pen. I did use a pen to start with, and I don't know if you can see it, but it never fully dried. And I could then, you know, I was going through and distressing, and I ended up having to repaint a few. So don't use a pen because they won't work. All right, let's go. I'm going to start by painting everything white. I'm going to use a combination of a flat brush and a makeup wedge. It's kind of depending on where I'm at on the piece and making sure I don't, you know, paint the edges. But for the most part, when you're painting these, if you start at the center and brush out, you should be good to go. If you find using a brush you are getting too much paint on the edge and you want to keep those nice dark edges, then do just switch to a makeup wedge, which I might here. The other thing I noticed with this wood, this current supply of wood, is it's a lot more rough. So you will want to sand it after that first coat. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see, if I hold it maybe at an angle, there's just some, like, you can see the grain of the wood just really standing up after adding the paint. When you're painting the daisies, the pieces that are gonna get overlaid have this outline on them. So this piece is actually gonna be overlaid with this. So I don't need to paint that. Same true here. This piece has that outline, that scored outline. There's a piece that sits on top of there, so we're not gonna need to paint that. I'm also painting the centers even though you really don't need to. I'm just finding it easier to just bring my brush inside that center and pull out. But obviously all the centers will be covered up with our center pieces. This piece and this piece are going to be covered up. They have that outline, so we don't need to paint those. We've got this one down here that's kind of tucked behind, or it appears to be. The bottom. And then this is going to get covered up in this one. So all we have left on this big piece are this top one and this side one here. So 4 daisies is all we need to paint on the main piece. Remember to work in light coats. We want that first coat to be super light. It's going to look splotchy. That's all right. It allows us to kind of put that primer coat down. We're going to sand to get a nice smooth finish after it dries, and then we'll come back with that second coat to get a really nice solid paint color. If you're catching this on the replay, let me see if I have anybody on right now. I don't think so. Let me know in the comments what your favorite spring flower is. I know daisies aren't the very first flowers to bloom, but they are one of my favorites. So much so I had them in my wedding bouquet when I got married eons ago. It feels like eons ago. It was eons ago. It was. I don't know who I'm trying to kid. We're supposed to go to a track meet tomorrow, and that was another track season started, so it's always kind of one of those things I've got to work around for meets and things, but it got canceled because, well, the winter wants to stick around a little bit longer, so that's a bummer. Track season feels like one of the hardest track feels like one of the hardest sports because it's so dependent on the weather. I mean, even like softball players will play anything. But track, if the field's not good and there's just so many other variables that it gets canceled a lot. So our season always feels super short. I think the first meet was canceled. That was last weekend. And then tomorrow's canceled. And so now we're down to like, I think 4 meets for this season. I think they're going to try and schedule a couple quick little meets here and there just to get the kids get them some experience in competing. So yeah, it's one of our favorite sports, and it's always a bummer when we have to cancel. My husband takes it a little hard. It's his very favorite. But, okay, first coat is on everything, so now I'm just going to take some sandpaper. I'm going to go back and sand those pieces. So I'm going to find, might have to use my blow dryer real quick. I did have someone ask me what this tool was. And this is actually just a heat gun. It's a Stampin' Up heat gun that you would use for embossing. But I love it for drying my stuff. And the only reason I don't use this opposed to like a hair dryer, because you can use a hair dryer too, is that it's not as loud. Like a hair dryer is super loud, and when I'm recording videos, I can kind of talk over this, and it's not so bad. It blows out really softly, but it's a very high heat. So it works a little different than a blow dryer. A blow dryer does get hot, but not too hot, and it's fast. It's a fast heat, it's a fast air. And then, the heat isn't as intense. Whereas this heat gun, and you can get heat guns anywhere. It doesn't have to be an embossing one from Stampin' Up. High heat, low air, which can be super beneficial if you're not trying to, push things around, as I suppose you would with, Stampin' Up and embossing powder. You don't want to blow that embossing powder everywhere. You just want to heat it up. I've only used it for embossing powder stuff a couple times. And so it's become just my craft tool now. Where are we at? Okay. So I sanded everything, knocked those fibers down. Just going to make sure everything feels smooth. And now we're going to go back and do a second coat on everything. This one is so super simple, but I feel like it just is one of those that are so pretty. I have it sitting on a little shelf when you first walk into my house. And everyone who comes in has commented on it. They're like, oh, that's so pretty. So I sometimes have to remember simple is just as pretty as super detailed, complicated designs. Because sometimes I want to just over design things. But this one turned out super cute. Bucket of daisies. The other flower that I have really enjoyed lately is, or the last couple summers, is zinnias. I don't know if anyone on here has ever tried to grow those, but I did plant some 2 summers ago. And I was amazed. Like, I've never planted them before. It's never just been in my radar. But I can't remember what it's called. There's a technique out there where you put some dirt in the bottom of like a milk jug with your seeds, and then you put the top of the milk jug back on, keep the lid off, and you're essentially like germinating in the cold. Like it's supposed to harden the seeds and make your plants tougher, blah, blah, blah. And it lets you start seeds outside as opposed to inside. I always seem to kill them when they're inside. I don't know. Anyways, so I did that, and I had these milk crates full of these zinnias. And then once you're ready to plant and it's you leave them in there until it's planting season. So they can be in there as it starts to get warmer. If it freezes at night, they're supposed to be fine, and they were. It was pretty amazing. And so I had these milk jugs full of these little baby zinnias. And they were seeds from the dollar store, mind you, as well. So it was kind of an experiment, and it turned out. And so then once you are ready to plant them wherever, you just, cut all the roots out. You kind of just break them apart from each other and plant them in clumps. I think somebody called it the brownie method. Like you cut the dirt into brownie clumps. Anyways, I don't know if you've ever heard of anything like that. You can do it with all sorts of seeds and veggies and things. And I can't remember. There's like a term for it, but I can't remember. If anyone remembers, let me know in the comments. But anyways, we had all these beautiful zinnias, different sizes, giant ones, and they're just so pretty. I was so amazed by them, and they're so hardy, and they last forever. That was the other thing, like the flowers themselves are long lasting. So then the next year, I didn't do the cold thing. I just threw seeds into my flower beds along with all my other stuff. And midsummer, here comes those zinnias, huge and just full of color all for the rest of the season. So they're slowly becoming my second favorite, if not favorite. They were pretty cool. And I'm amazed that people have like zinnia flower businesses. Like they grow rows of them and then pick them and sell them at markets and stuff. It's pretty cool. Because of course then I had to do some research on them. And anyways, these kind of remind me of those, and you could do so many different colors. Corals and pinks and reds and yellows. Okay, so we've got our second coat on everything. I'm gonna let this sit for just a minute while I come in and fill in my little dots. So for those, I just used my yellow and added a little white to it, so they were like highlight dots. And I'm going to use just a liner brush, little round. I'm going to dip it in the yellow. I'm going to grab some white, mix that together. And come in and just fill those little dots in. You could go darker. If your centers, are of a little bit darker color, these could be black or dark brown. I chose to do lighter. There we go. All right. I'm going to get my blow dryer out here and see if I can get these dried so we can move on. Okay, so if you want to distress, you can use the antique wax if you have it, or you can use a dark brown paint, or even for adding shadows to the flowers, a blue works really well. I've done blue for shadows. And then for the yellow, you could use a darker yellow or an orange color. So experiment with different colors on adding shadows and dimension to your pieces. I am going to show you this distress ink. I'm going to use this walnut stain. And I'm going to use this tool here. And I literally just go over it like this. The stain is there. And I want to add some shadow around my center. So I kind of put my piece here, and let me just make sure this is dry before I get too crazy. And I'm just going to rub and blend that in. Now obviously the center is going to be covered up, but I try and keep, I don't want my shading to go too far out, so I kind of just go around that area. But isn't that pretty? It's kind of just a different way to distress your pieces. Something a little different. You can get quite a bit out of it. Distress, or even just add shadow. I kind of went darker here because this one is in the center, and I can even add some kind of where the petals are touching. Because this one is set back. If you see it here, this is kind of below everything, and so it's really in the shadow there. This one looks a little brown. I think let me pull this one out. And I just use the same tool. I'm not going to switch tools for this, but I think I use this light, this more brown color. Yeah, there we go. So this one's called Vintage Photo, and the one I just got done using is Walnut Stain. So you can see how that's more of a darker brown, like walnut, and this Vintage Photo has kind of got some yellowy, softer brown tones to it. It's just something a little different and fun. And if you didn't have one of these, you could use a Q-tip to apply it. A paper towel. I've seen people who just take this and just use it on their piece, although that creates a really heavy or more heavy distressing. I kind of start in the center and just work my way out. That way I offload a lot of the ink in the center and then just kind of blend it out. Okay. Now, if you don't have this, let me just show you if you had the antique wax or even just paint, either one, using a baby wipe. We've done this in the past. In case you've missed it, this works just the same way, guys. Wrap your baby wipe around your finger, tap into that color, whatever color it is, whether that's the brown, a blue, whatever you're using to create your shadows or distressing. And then I offloaded it. I'm kind of just tapping on my paper over here to kind of get rid of that. And I'm going to start in the center the same way and kind of work my way out so that the product gets put out or is laid in the center more than everything else. So here we have that. And then to blend it out, I'm going to find a clean spot of my baby wipe. And I'm just going to soften up that line because it's pretty harsh. And I want it to just blend out. So I just rub over it to soften up that line. We can kind of just drag out. And there we go. So you can kind of see how different each method is. They both work. I think this method with the baby white does take just a little bit more to, you know, soften out that shade so you don't have a hard line. Whereas this was really easy to just kind of blend over. There we go. So baby wipe with a color works just as well. Okay, so I'm gonna, I'll distress my centers or give them a shadow once I get them on, because I don't know which way is up or down yet, and I want to make sure that I'm creating that shadow on the piece underneath. So I'm going to set that aside real quick, and we're going to start assembling our piece. I'm just going to use some all-purpose glue. I'm out of my super glue, which I'm finding now that I'm using this all-purpose glue that it works just as well. I used to be a big, huge fan of the what do I want to call it? What is it? It's the instant adhesive. And I was like, you gotta get it, you gotta get it. It's perfect, but this works just as well. I feel like it dries just as fast. I'm having no problems with it. So I've created a little pool. Can you see my palette? You can. I've created a little pool for all my small pieces, and I'm going to use actually a makeup wedge to apply those. So that's always nice too, is because you have a little more control with that. But some of these bigger pieces, I'm just going to dab. And then if you want to, you can use that makeup wedge, keeping your fingers clean, and just tap that glue around so it gets on all the pieces. I mean, look how great that is. And remove some if you need to, right? And then this piece, you want to find where your pieces go before you start gluing them. And then just look around all your edges to make sure all the petals line up. This is going to sit right on the bottom of your basket, so this piece does need to be straight right here, so just take that into consideration. So I know I need a two-piecer right here, which it's this one, so it's the only two-piecer I have. These little notches are going to notch right into those petals there, okay? I'm going to throw a couple drops down. I'm going to use that makeup wedge, tap that glue around. I also love this because now my fingers aren't getting all gooey. Because usually I would be like this and then it would be a mess. But for some reason my brain's like, duh, just use a makeup wedge for that one day. And I was like, that's brilliant, of course. Okay. So now we have two pieces here that need a flower. And this piece is going to be one of these two. And I know it's this one because it's bigger. So just lay them out. You'll see that this one's too small here, right? So now it's this one. And we only need glue on the top part of the flower. So I'm actually going to put glue on this piece as opposed to the flower itself, because I don't want glue back here where it's going to sit on my basket. And just make sure that lines up. Press it. And there we go. All right, so this one's a floater. We're going to be able to put that wherever we want. And now we need a full flower here. So we have 2 left. This one is obviously not going to fit. It's too small. So here's this one. Now the next thing to do here before we glue down is kind of decide at what angle this sits. So we just kind of want to rotate it around until we find, I'm kind of keeping my eye on these petals here, finding where those petals match up. Takes a couple rotations possibly. I think we're getting close. Right. Huh? Did I pass it? Oh goodness, maybe I need to look at it in a different way. There we go. No. Do I have the wrong piece in here? Did it get shrunk? No, it didn't. I just need to find the right spot. Okay. Keep going. You'll find it. So just a quick little clue. These 2 skinny ones, so if you look at it, there's these 2 skinny ones, and they're obviously more skinny and put together. They're like close together. Those are going up into that flower right there. Okay. I got nervous for just a second. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. Look at it from all corners, all angles, and there we are. Okay, and now these 2 can go anywhere you want. I think I put this one over here, kind of tucked behind, and then this one up here. You could go reverse it. You could have them both over here. It doesn't really matter how you do it. I'm probably going to glue those on after I get all my centers on. Okay. All right. So let's put these centers on. Now there's really no right or wrong. If it's, I'm just going to start laying them out. This one's kind of big for this one. So I think this needs to go over here. Let's find the biggest one is here. The next biggest one is going to be this guy. Then we've got 3 kind of medium-sized ones. So those will go here. And then we have one that has a little cutout. And I know that one goes up in there because it wraps around that petal. Okay, so lay them all out so you kind of have an idea where they're going to go. We've got the 2 bigs. We've got the 3 top looking flowers where they're turned to the side. We've got the 3 mediums, and then the one that, or the 4 mediums, and then the one that sits with the petal there. And then once you've got them all where you want them, we can go ahead and start gluing those down. For the ones that are the full circles or the ovals, there's really, you know, this can kind of shift right to left, up or down, just as long as you're not seeing the score mark or guide line underneath. For these ones, you do kind of want to keep an eye out on this top piece and line those up. The oval ones have a little more flexibility. Let's make sure I keep grabbing the ones that I've already glued. I also wanted to make sure that I put my little highlight buttons kind of pointed up and not flipped around. Let me show you what I mean. I think I did one here. Oh no. But for instance, this one is, I would consider upside down. If you glue it down like that, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't worry about it, but I mean, this one's kind of off to the side, so it's a flower, and all flowers are unique, so, you know. All right, let's just take a look at everything staying where I want it to be. There we go. I'll put a little more glue down for when I'm ready to glue my back flowers out. All right. So then the next thing I did was I took my Sharpie and I just messily, wiggly, I wanted my lines to look very random and sketchy. So I am not taking very much care into creating my petals. Just creating these little loops in all my petals. And you can see how they are very squiggly. They're sketchy is the word I like to use. I'm just going to take a minute and put lines on all my petals here. Excuse me. If you don't like this style of a finish for your petals and you want to just add some, maybe some detail lines or highlight lines, then that's okay too. This is a kind of a different style. It kind of reminded me of the watercolor type paintings where they maybe just paint like a blob and then they use like a journaling pen to fill in like a heart or a strawberry or a fruit or trees or something. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. If you guys watch art videos, art making videos like I do. I love watching people paint and create art. These type of sketching is also popular in like urban sketching books. It's where they'll, you know, put the color down in kind of a blob and then come in and sketch the trees in and the buildings, which I absolutely love that type of sketchbook. There we go. Very fast, very random, messy, fun sketches. I didn't do any sketching on the centers, but you definitely could. You do want to let it sit and dry for a little bit. Don't run your fingers over it until you've had it sit for a while. There we go. Okay, so let's add some I'm just really, really liking this little stamp set. You can get this set, this whole set. It comes like with some different colors at any of the craft stores. I think you can get it on Amazon too if you guys are interested in grabbing it. It's kind of fun. And then these, they are in the craft section, but you can also get these just kind of at Walmart in the makeup section. They're makeup blending brushes. I don't, you know, I've never looked at the dollar store to see if they have any, but I bet they do. That'd be a great starting point. But I want to say you can, so just so you know, you get like a whole set of them. Like I've got this one. I feel like they came in like a pack of like 4 different ones. 4 different sizes, maybe 3. I can't find the other ones. But you've got this huge one. I don't know what I'd use that for, but so you kind of get different sizes. I think we actually have someone who makes cards in the group. I wonder if you've used, I think it's Cheryl, if I remember right, does cards. I'd be interested to know if you've used these. I've seen people's card, you know, their craft rooms, because again, I kind of like that stuff. That's the stuff I look at, like on Pinterest and stuff, craft rooms. And they have one of these for all the colors. And they like almost pay with them on their cards. Because you can use any of your ink pads this way, I think. Don't quote me on that. But anyways. So maybe Cheryl can comment on that if she uses these or not. But okay, there we go. I've got my centers. So now I'm going to apply some glue. Let's see, I think I'm going to put that one there and that one there. So I'm just going to apply some glue into some random spots back here, kind of where I think I want it. And then, let's see, slide that in there. And that one there. We'll hold it there for a second. There we go. That is our daisy insert. Again, if you need to, don't forget you can sand this. I feel like this shipment of wood feels a little thicker. After doing this for quite a few years, I can kind of tell. And there's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. It's just the way that manufacturer manufactures wood. It could be the type of wood they got and how. I mean, there's so many different things. So we've just got to roll with it, sand it a little bit. You guys will be good to go. I hope you enjoyed this one. I can't wait to see your guys's daisies, Gerber daisies, colorful, simple, whatever you guys do. Make sure to post a picture in the comments. I hope you have fun crafting this month and it inspires you to do more and brings a smile to your face to look at this beautiful basket of flowers as we wait for spring. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.